Hi folks, Kieran here again. Hope you're all good. Just doing a quick video about a book I read, which is called Equality and Liberty. This is the book by a guy called Nielson. Bit of background about why I read this book. I bought this book and read this book. Basically, as I've said in previous videos, I have a political system called equal satisfaction, and this system, I've kind of thought of it maybe, was it 10 years ago now? And I was trying to do some research around equality, radical equality, and this kind of thing, similar stuff to mine. And I came across on Google search, this book, which was on Google, reviewed on Google. So some of the pages of the book were available online to look at, but unfortunately not all free. And in the book, it's basically a political philosophy book from, I think, 1984 or the 80s, certainly, by a philosopher, this guy Kai Nielson. And he mentioned, it's basically a radical, he calls it, what do you call this system now? Hang on. Equality as justice. No, is it justice as equality? That's what he calls this system. And his system actually mentions, and the book mentions, equal satisfaction as an idea. And in the briefly looking at the pages that were the review previewed, I should say, on Google, the idea of equal satisfaction seemed kind of similar to mine. So I thought, oh hell, has he beaten me to it? Also, I'm interested in reading the book anyway, even if he isn't quite beaten me to it. It might be a related sort of idea and something I really need to know about. So, unfortunately, book's really hard to get hold of, so but I managed to buy it, I think, on eBay, or was it Amazon? One of those two. Anyway, it got shipped over from America for £15, I think, I paid. And it's an ex-library book, which is quite cool. It's kind of hardback, and I won't open it up. No, actually, here, you'll see. Can you read that? Michigan Library or something? Anyway, so it was sitting in a library for a long time, and now it's then sent to my house. And I think some bookseller who's like gets ex-library books or something and sells them. So it wasn't a bad book. It's a little bit the sentences are kind of long, so I found it a little bit challenging to read. Quite lots of big words, quite a lot of big words, and as I say, long sentences. So I found it a struggle to actually read. But I was interested in what his idea was, if it was the same as mine, particularly. A bit of ego coming into it here. And it turns out his idea is it's a little bit like mine. He certainly thought of the same phrase, and there's some other things he thought of that were similar. I should explain a bit more detail about what was similar and what wasn't. So you can look at a previous video, I think, called Equal Satisfaction, to see what the equal satisfaction idea is. But very briefly, my idea is a society where the state makes sure everyone's equally satisfied in their lives. So, and anybody who's got more satisfied, basically, in my current thinking of version of it, which I haven't actually written down yet, which I need to put on my website, my latest thoughts on it. Every 6 months, basically, each citizen has to fill in a form saying how satisfied they are and what their day-to-day life is like, what they're doing with their hours, and so on. And if it turns out, basically, that goes to a kind of department called Satisfaction Review, I think, and they figure out if the person's more satisfied than they should be, And if they are, then what usually happens is their pay rate for work is reduced if they're too satisfied, more satisfied than this standard kind of level set for the whole society. So satisfaction actually includes like work satisfaction. If you got a really cool kind of job, you'll be assumed to be more satisfied. Also, your obviously pay and so on, and your private life is also included. So if you're like happily married or whatever, that would probably assume you're more satisfied than somebody who's single. Though that's a bit of an inexact science, I must admit. But anyway, it turns out I find it pretty difficult to work out what this Nielson guy was, and what his system actually was recommending. But I think there is an element of equal satisfaction in his system, but I think he's focusing more on like your equal pay, basically equal kind of material welfare. I think on the work side of things, he's not quite so radical. I think he's talking about kind of people doing kind of the same jobs they do now. They're kind of the same kind of demarcation of labor we have now, but with obviously much more equal kind of pay for different kinds of jobs. So one thing he doesn't really go into, doesn't seem to answer, is why someone would do a more difficult job, or whether that difficult jobs will be more highly paid, and so on. I think he does go into a little bit of the other kind of similar question that most people would ask about radically egalitarian things, which is why would anybody, study to become an expert in anything or that kind of thing. He does go into that, and I totally agree with him. It's basically, if you're paid to study, which I think you should be, because it's a kind of work, isn't it, training, then I don't see why anybody wouldn't study and do a more mentally challenging kind of job, mentally more challenging stroke interesting job for the same kind of pay, because other jobs would get kind of more monotonous. Anyway, this book is mostly a philosophy book, of political philosophy. So it's quite low on details of like kind of the practicalities of the thing I was just talking about. So I'm actually currently reading this book, Looking Backward, by Edward Bellamy. It's quite famous utopian book from the late 19th century, American book, and that's much more like on practicalities, like everyone has to make equal effort, and it's kind of, they go into the details of how they do these things, and I'm only a little way through it, but it seems pretty good so far, that book. Anyway, also with this Nielson book, he only part of the book is about his idea, unfortunately. So it's about a 300-page book, and literally about 100 pages, I think, of most of the first 100 pages, and then a kind of 20 pages at the end are going into his system. Whereas there's a kind of 200-page sort of bit where I think for about 100 pages he's talking about meritocracy and desert, like people deserving better situations, and he seems to be a little bit of a moderate on that front. He like allows, unlike with my system, he seems to be allowing a certain amount of desert, like the best person getting the job kind of stuff, which I'm kind of a bit loath to do any of in my system. I don't think my system really allows much of that. I mean, it allows people to do tasks they could at whatever, but it isn't like a job. There shouldn't be a situation where there's two jobs and one person can get. No, sorry, there's one job where two people are trying to get to, and it's like a good job, and they're kind of fighting over it, kind of thing. I don't think that's going to be happening under my equal satisfaction system. And then there's another 100 pages in this Nielson book where he goes on about another book which I have read by Robert Nozick, which is called Anarchy, State and Utopia, and it's just a lot more famous than Nielson's book. Also, he goes into this a lot of John Rawls' stuff in this book as well. He's comparing himself to his system to John Rawls' system as well a lot. That wasn't the reason. Definitely wasn't the stuff I wanted to read the book for, but it was quite interesting. I did a philosophy course years ago where I did read the Anarchy, State and Utopia and a bit of, about a third of John Rawls' book. I'm always interested to hear like radically left-wing critiques of these things. Anyway, broadly speaking, just in case Mr. Nielson does, or Professor Nielson, or whatever his title is, watches this, hats off to you for doing this great book, and hats off to you for being a radical egalitarian. There's not many of us around, so it was heartening to read and to hear from another radical egalitarian. Anyway, this is the book, Equality and Liberty, and it was good fun to read, and I hope you found that review interesting. All the best.